Da, 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 da. I need a theme song. Hey, welcome to Comic Book Gallery. I'm your host, Joaquin. So today's episode, sorry, let me get situated here. Today's episode, I'm going to be talking about my favorite group of all time, the Uncanny X-Men. It's the reason why I got into collecting comic books. So this run's going to be about 150 to 159. As you see right here, I have my little post-it notes. Now, normally I'm not in front of the camera, so I have my laptop in front of me, and I have these little notes, so I can just look at them real quick and remember exactly what I want to talk about in each book, because sometimes I forget. So now I've gotten that out of the way. I hope you can see this clearly, and I think I found my mark. So let's start off with 150. So 150 is the X-Men versus Magneto, and the cover says, "Enough said." So the X-Men are battling Magneto. It's been like 10 years since I've read these books, so I kind of glanced over them last night. So I don't remember if there's anything significant about this book. When I looked it up to see value-wise, was there anything? I didn't see anything, but it was a cool cover, and for what I can remember, of course, the X-Men win, but I don't think anything significant, like I said. So next up, now this is a two-part series. So 151, and it's like X-Men -1, Kitty Pryde leads the X-Men. And as you can see, everybody's in shock. Well, you find out in the story that when at one point Storm and Emma Frost switch bodies, and Emma, the White Queen, is using that to her advantage to try to coerce and get Kitty Pryde to leave and join the Hellfire Club, but not join the Hellfire Club, but uh, go to their school and eventually would become like a Hellion. So that's what this episode deals with. Um, yeah, it was a nice little read, and I'm looking forward to going back and rereading this whole series again. I picked these out last night, so like I said, I just did a quick glance through, wrote down some notes, and we right here on 152, the Hellfire Gambit. So they're fighting for the future of Kitty Pryde, is what I forget what website I looked that off of, but I like their synopsis for it. So Storm and Emma Frost are fighting. Eventually, the X-Men go back to reclaim Kitty, and at the end, Storm is so enraged about what Emma Frost did is that she almost kills her, and it took the team to stop her. So next up is 153. Now, for those of you who read this book at the time, this was a fun little book, and basically it's Kitty Pryde telling Ileana, Colossus's sister, bedtime stories. And I believe Nightcrawler's like a swashbuckler, and so I have not read this story, or I don't. It's been a while, so this is one of the books that I'm looking forward to reading over this weekend. But I thought it was a great cover, and like I said, I thought this is a not bad run between 150 and 159. Really interesting on the stories that they're going through, because you start off fighting Magneto. I like the cover on this. That's why I want to show it again. And then you segue straight into Kitty Pryde and the Hellfire Club. And then they took a little break, which I thought was interesting, with the whole fairy tale episode, which leads into 154. Yeah, let me look at my notes real quick. So this is the issue where Corsair comes back, and he's part of this. He leads the Stars Jammers, and he has a warning about the Shire Empire needing help. and bounty hunters are after him. And this is where Scott learns that Corsair is his father. And they don't really get to deal with the issue because of everything that's going on. So 155 is a really minor key X-Men villain appearance. It's the first appearance of the Brood. Now, I remember when I was reading this, I thought this was so cool, because this is around the time of when Aliens came out and the hype on that. And the X-Men were being attacked by them, and Colossus gets messed up, as you can see in the cover. And they're still dealing with the Shi'ar, which leads to 157. No, I'm sorry. Did I put these out of order? Yes, I did. Oops, my bad. That's the conclusion to the Shi'ar story. So here we go. 156. So this is the Starjammers. I always love this color. I'm trying not to lead in too much, so I'm not chopped off. So hopefully I'm not. I'll find out in the playback. But so you have the whole cast, or most of the cast here, the Starjammers, and they're still dealing with the Shi'ar. I want to say Deathbird is in this issue, and they're dealing with her trying to take over the Shi'ar, which is their MO. And that's the first appearance I believe I do not have. So that's probably one that's under the radar, because Marvel at one point wants to do this story. And if Disney was going to do a Dark Phoenix story, they would be involved. So get the first appearance of this and the first appearance of Deathbird. You never know when they're finally going to wake up and realize that is the best Dark Phoenix story. Which now leads to the return of the Dark Phoenix. So when you were reading this and you saw this cover, you're like, what? Like, I thought she was dead. Well, it turns out that Kitty Pryde is pretending to be her. I believe there's this machine where it can change her clothing. And so she uses that with her phasing ability and Nightcrawler's poofing ability. So she comes in and she freaks out the Imperial Guard. I want to say it's the Imperial Guard. So they're thrown off guard, and it's a diversion tactic so they can rally the X-Men and help. I cannot remember her name. I'm sorry. I should have wrote down the name, but there's a woman who leads the Shi'ar Empire, and you would think, I'll put this back here for a moment, with all these little notes right here, that I would have put in her name. Oops, my bad. But back to the story. So at the end, let me just take a quick look. Okay, so at the end, Professor X is mortally wounded, and he's left in a semi-coma. So the X-Men are dealing with that, and it's the end of wrapping up the Shi'ar Empire story. Oh, that's killing me. I should know her name. Let me look this up real quick. So unprofessional of me. So if I can't find it within a moment. Oh, but you know what? While I am doing this, I did want to show you something. And I'm hoping that you can see this. Hopefully this will pop up. Look at the prices for these books back in the 80s. But because it's really, I don't know how well it came up, but I'll just look at something right here. So, Fantastic Four, number 48, which I believe is the first appearance of the Silver Surfer and Galactus. Comic books for sale at Mile High Comics was $15. Hulk 181 was $12. So I started collecting comics in the mid-'80s. And because I didn't know any better and I wasn't into picking up keys, I was just reading the books, and I was just a casual collector, I passed up on all of these books. Let's see what they have for X-Men. X-Men 11 and 12, $11. X-Men 13 through 16, $9 a piece. And those books were probably from very fine to near mint because of the quality of Mile High Comics, who are still around today. So back to, I couldn't see her name off, so I'm not going to bother to look for it. But if somebody does, you can leave a comment down below, and you can take a jab at me for not knowing her name and not being as prepared as I should have been. Which brings me up to 158. So, if you notice, I always thought it was interesting when they do villains, especially on this image right here with Rogue. Sometimes you could just tell the villain because the way that they had their hair, and even though Wolverine has his hair up similar, they gave her the white marks on the side just to let you know that she's a villain. So we have Rogue, and Mystique makes an appearance. So I believe I have this on my notes. So this is the third appearance of Rogue, and the first time she appears in the X-Men book. Carol Daniels and the X-Men are breaking into a government facility to erase the X-Men's backgrounds and their files, because after they're still dealing with Professor X's condition and he's no longer in contact with the government, so they need to make sure that there's no trace of them. So they break in, they bump into Mystique and Rogue, and a fight ensues, and they get away with mission accomplished, and Carol Daniels beats down Mystique and threatens to deal with Rogue on a later date. And the last issue is 159. So let's just go from 150 to 159. So this issue right here, the X-Men fight Dracula. And it's a one-shot, which I thought could have been a two-shot. And once again, the phone is ringing. So I'm here at PFC Games here in Linwood, Washington. I would just turn the phone off, but it's my friend Mike's business, so it could be an important message that they need to leave. So again, I apologize for the phone, but it is what it is. This run in between 150 and 159, I thought was an interesting run because you start off with Magneto. Then you deal with the Hellfire Club. Then you have that fun little story in between where it's Kitty Pryde and her little fairy tales. Then you jump into the first appearance of the Brood, and you're dealing with the Starjammers. Then you're dealing with a little one-shot with Rogue and Mystique in a base. And to wrap it all up is Dracula. So the premise of this book is that the X-Men are going to visit Misty Knight, and they go into her apartment and they find out she has a roommate there. And it starts off as a nice little casual episode of them just relaxing and waiting for a friend, and Kitty trying on new clothes. When Storm gets attacked in an alley by Dracula, which then ensues an encounter with the X-Men attacking Dracula to win back Storm, and they fight Storm, and at the last moment Storm regains her control of her body because she's no longer in control of Dracula. And oh my god, hold on. Can't believe I have to do this. Sorry, whoever I just hung up on, but anyways, they'll call back. The store officially opens up in about 5 minutes, so I want to wrap this up. So, back to what I was saying about Dracula. Dracula They get into a fight, and this is another occasion where they have a draw. So back in, I want to say 145, 146, they're dealing with Doctor Doom, and they fight him to a draw. And because Doctor Doom is somewhat taken by storm, he says to her that, there's no ill will. So she replies something like, the ball's in your court. It's kind of like the same thing here, but not the same, where Storm tells Dracula that she will hunt him down. And he tells her it could be, lifetimes and you would never find me. But he promises to come back one day. I don't think he ever did. So if you like what you see, hit the like button. If you thought it was funny that I'm being constantly interrupted by the phone, hit the like button and leave a comment below if you've read any of these series and what you liked about them. And if you're new to the channel, hello and welcome to Comic Book Gallery. And hit the subscribe button, and I will catch you later. Now I gotta do my little walk off. Take care, people.